So again, we're talking about saving treatable animals, and a lot of people have asked me, how did you do that? And a lot of it, even though I've talked about planning and being ready and knowing what your problems are, a lot of it is simply the attitude to just do it. Just say, oh, all right, I'll try and put a 12-year-old dog up for adoption and see what happens. It's never going to get a home. But guess what? Trying it makes me not know what I'm talking about. And then the next time I do know that the 12-year-old dog or the blind cat or whatever can, in fact, get out of the shelter and get out alive and have a lovely, wonderful life. At times it seems almost ridiculous what we are asked to do when we haven't done it in the past. And then it seems like, well, why did I not know that? What was going on in my head that I wasn't letting this thought in? So I'm inviting all of you who have not tried on some of your treatable animals or your manageable animals or your healthy animals who you just don't think are adoptable. Give it a try. You're going to be surprised. Again, I think that in the years where I believed that the public was the enemy rather than my partner, I didn't trust that they would help out with the blind dog or the old cat. But you know what? They do. It's simply amazing what happens if you just do it. So I'm going to talk about some programs I never thought I would do. Free adoptions. I mean, when I first started in this field, the last thing I ever wanted to see was a sign that said free kittens or free puppies. I would pull over on the side of the road and pretend I was somebody else and say, oh, I'll take all of them. I just hated seeing those signs. So the idea of somebody who was letting their animal have a mistake litter of puppies or kittens, and the SPCA encouraging adoptions by having no adoption fee, those are really two different things. But in my mind, free was free. It said that animals were at risk, and I never thought that I would do free adoptions. But as we headed down this road, and we had gotten to the point where we weren't euthanizing healthy cats, I could hardly believe that. But in order to do so, I noticed that our shelter was really getting crowded and we were causing other problems for the cats in our care because we had too many cats in there. And I looked at that, I looked at the data, I looked at how long they were staying, and I heard somebody talk about free adoptions and how it assisted them in lowering the number of care days of an animal in the shelter. So in this slide, well, the first thing we did it free one weekend, okay? And with no kind of thought to it, we were just full. We said, well, we'll give away cats and kittens this weekend and see what happens. My staff almost killed me because we did 310 free adoptions in like 48 hours. And they were furious. I mean, they were just like, they couldn't believe it. And there wasn't any thought to it, and we didn't have any program for follow-up, and we didn't do anything. We just made them free, which I'm not suggesting that you do. But we did find that it did increase adoptions, 310 in 48 hours. I mean, unbelievable. So after that, we started looking at it, and we started putting some rules into it, and we did a lot of follow-up. And it's sort of interesting because one of the things that I've found is that people don't come in and say, oh, I'll take that cat because it's free. What they do is they say, why doesn't this cat have an adoption fee? And then when the counselor or the volunteer says, well, we felt that Fluffy just couldn't compete with that 8-week-old kitten because the public, they see Fluffy and they see the kitten and they always take the kitten and poor Fluffy has to sit here. And the person who probably, without hearing that, would have picked the kitten says, are you kidding me? People won't take that perfectly wonderful adult cat? Well, I will, okay? There's something about cats And the ability for the person who is adopting them to feel like they are saving them, that is very important. It's why, with 67% of people taking in cats that are before them, it's why their rate of relinquishment is lower than cats that are planned for. The element of feeling like you've saved this animal is a bonding situation. And we know that there's a bonding problem between owners and cats because we get so many cats in that are 4 and 5 years old, and why hasn't that bond occurred? They're 6 or 7 years old. Why hasn't that bond occurred? So I've really been surprised by dropping the adoption fee on cats. What, again, I've found out from the public is that they will rise to the occasion, and they will bond with this cat that can't compete with the kitten faster than they will bond with the cat. So what happened? We made this our policy in December of 2009, and I've put up the first year statistics, and overall we saved 14,000 care days in the first year. This slide is based on all cats a year and over who were adopted, okay? So 14,000 care days. I expect it's something that more than paid for the loss of the adoption fees. So in reality, what did it mean? It meant 50 more cats over 3 adopted in the first year. And that was in a year where we saw a 7% decrease in cat adoptions overall. So it's a little bit better figure than it at first appears. But I'm glad we did it for those 50 cats over 3. And just doing that lowered everybody's rate of stay. And we do rechecks on the cats 3 days, 3 weeks, and 3 months. I believe their return rate is lower, as our off-site adoption return rate is lower than our shelter adoption rate. So, interesting. Another thing I never thought I would do, forming a coalition. I just can't believe how much we all hate each other sometimes. I think we set out about 6 years ago to try and form a coalition. The reason that we did it was that we wanted to get the help of the folks who have set up the spay-neuter programs around the country. Kathy, are you still in the audience? No. We needed all the organizations within a 60-mile radius to get along in order for them to come and help us. So we actually worked with a facilitator for over a year to learn how to talk to one another and get along, but it was well worth it because then the second thing we did was start applying for the Maddie's Fund grant. It kind of all brought us together. Now we're all partners. It was a very, very difficult process, so worthwhile. Don't give up on one another. You're all wonderful people, and it'll all work out in the end. You know, you will find strengths in your partners that you don't have. Earlier today, someone was talking about dogs that have skin diseases, chronic skin diseases, and I believe it was the retired vet who said there are organizations all over the country who will transport these animals to their facilities. I mean, we have such cooperation going on now. I think it's really important to work on not just forming local coalitions, but as many coalitions as you can to get to all the animals. Once I believed feral cats lived the most miserable lives, and it was a kindness to euthanize them. Somebody challenged me on it, thank God. And I brought in all these people, and I thought, you know, in Buffalo, New York, you know, not only do they live miserable lives, but they all die in the winter because they're plowed into the snowbanks. So, I mean, really. Or underneath dumpsters, they get trapped, you know. And I figured they just that's how they died, and I was challenged on it, so I invited people from all northern climates that were running feral cat programs to come and talk to all the people who were running animal programs in my community. And, I listened to them, and I found out again I was just a dope, and I didn't know anything. And we started looking at the feral cats that were coming to us, and lo and behold, these were feral cats with no known caretaker. 72% of them were healthy. We couldn't find anything wrong with them. They didn't even have parasites. Their teeth were great, their coats were great, they were just doing fine on their own. So I went to the board and I said, I think that we helped get a feral cat program started, and we refuse to take feral cats. Feral cats are the only animal that our shelter refuses to take. We'll take an elephant, but I won't take in a feral cat. They will be referred to Feral Cat Focus, or we will help them get their feral cat sterilized. And in our Maddie's Pet Rescue Project, they believed in the wisdom of that and supported the sterilization of feral cats through our Maddie's grant. So it's just been a wonderful thing. And, before we had that, at our shelter, another way that we supported the whole feral cat notion was that we gave over our spay-neuter suite for the weekends, and then the feral cat people could come in and run their own programs, and it was wonderful to watch. But again, 15 years ago, I hate to say 10, but certainly 15 years ago, I would have thought this was a ridiculous thing and that I would never do it. Treating URI. Certainly it was once a reason for euthanasia at our shelter. As a matter of fact, when we started bringing down the number of cats, instead of the cats always going up, it finally got to the point where the number of cats was going down, and I looked at the two reasons that we were euthanizing cats that I felt we could do something about right away. And one was URI, and today we're treating over 500 cases annually in the shelter. I don't know how many in foster care. The other was the house cat that would come to us that was so fractious and so crazy that we couldn't put it up for adoption because we didn't have any place to cool it down. And this was before the days of group housing for cats, and I did a lot of study on what could calm these cats down because I wanted to be able to help them. And I did a lot of research, and I found that people were saying that you could calm cats down, you could keep them in a community room, and if they had so many square feet each. And so I built this room, and my staff called it Crazy Barbara's Cool Down Cat Room because they totally did not believe that we could put unrelated cats in the same room and that they would be okay. And as a matter of fact, the first two cats that went in that room, and it's called, by the way, Chillin' Village. It's not called Crazy Barbara's Cool Down Cat Room. My staff, the first two cats that came in, they were black and white, and they put them in that room. And the big joke around the shelter was, what's black and white and red all over Crazy Barbara's Cool Down Cat Room, because they were sure they would kill each other. And the next morning they had to go in and walk into the room to go and feed and clean up for the cats. And the cats came and were rubbing against their legs, and they, again, had to admit I was right, which they've gotten used to. So we took some dedicated space for our URIs, and we have dedicated staff and dedicated volunteers for enrichment. We found pretty quick on that we were treating these cats for URI, and by the time they came out of the URI room, they had to go in Crazy Barbara's Cool Down Cat Room because they were so nasty from just us shoving pills down their throats. So we have a great group of volunteers, the advocates, and they come in and they go in the room and they spend time with the cats, and then they go home. They gown up and they never go anyplace in the shelter. So I never thought we would be treating this many cases of URI, and I am delighted that we are.